guys, and welcome back to my channel. So today I am so excited to share with you part 3 of crazy guest stories or crazy guest experiences. If you haven't seen the first 2, I would highly recommend it. However, this video is probably going to be the best. I have saved some of my best stories for last. But if you haven't seen the other 2, I did have a little bit of a disclaimer I'll have in this video as well. When I say crazy, I don't necessarily mean bad or weird. Just crazy to me is a word to use that means like the opposite of normal. So these are just some of the stories that to me were different than my day-to-day interactions I experienced as a cast member at Disney. I worked both as a performer and as an attendant, and I have stories from both experiences. Also, before we get started, I just want to say a huge thank you so much to you guys. I just hit 10,000 subscribers, and even though to me, like, subscribers definitely isn't what drives me to make videos, I still really appreciate it. It just means there's a lot of you out there that like my videos, and that means so much to me. I absolutely love being able to talk with you guys in the comment section. That's my favorite part. It's just being able to talk with you guys and talk about Disney or makeup, and it's just so much fun being able to have this space where I can connect with you guys. So thank you guys so much for all of your love and support. I just feel so blessed for each and every one of you. You guys are all so kind, and yeah, I just really appreciate you guys, so thank you. And without further ado, let's just jump into part 3 of crazy guest stories. The first story I wanted to share with you guys is actually a continuation of a story I briefly mentioned in my last video, and I just think this is the coolest thing that this whole story has been able to come together because of my last video. So just to explain, the majority of the guests are coming from out of town. They're not from Florida, and you probably won't ever get a chance to see them again. However, I think it's so cool that one of the stories I mentioned in my last video about the choir group coming to sing to Ariel, one of the members of that group actually reached out to me because he saw the video, and it was really cool because I got to see and hear the whole story. I'm going to show you guys on the screen. Here's a picture of the group. So this is the entire group that came and sang for Ariel. I will list all the names of the members of the group down below. I talked to Joe. He was the one that sent me this picture in the video, and he let me know that they were in high school and they were from Wisconsin. So in my last video, I just kind of briefly mentioned this story. I didn't really go into full detail about it. What happened was I was with Ariel in the grotto one night. This group of high schoolers came in to meet Ariel, and they were so cool. They were like a glee club where I want to say they're more like a glee club because they sang to Ariel. They were like a choir, and they sounded amazing, and they also had this choreography too, and it was the highlight of Ariel's night. It was so cool to see. I mean, they were just so talented, and they were so joyful and so wonderful, and I know it just really made Ariel's night. And that was about it. I mean, I kept watching and seeing, like I would even check YouTube to see if they had posted the video. So I never saw it, so I was just like, oh, okay. I remember telling the story to my family and trying to explain it to them, and you can't do it justice unless you were there. And so I was bummed because I knew I'd probably never get a chance to talk with them. But Joe commented on my last video and said he was part of the group that came and sang to Ariel that one night in the grotto. So he was kind enough and actually sent me the video of that experience. So I want to share that video with you guys. I do want to share, I'm just looking at my comments, a comment from his friend. Her name is Isabella. She was also one of the group members, and I really wanted to share this comment because if you were in the room seeing that group perform for Ariel, you would have no idea this had happened. And I think it really is important, and it goes back to you have no idea what guests are going through, especially as a performer, or sometimes you don't know what performers or cast members or attendants, you have no idea what they're going through. And just to keep that in mind and having grace with people, sometimes there might be a guest that's not super friendly or is kind of unhappy. I'll mention that in a later story about an experience like that. And then sometimes too, like you don't know what the cast members are going through. Maybe they're having a rough day. And so it's always really good to keep that in mind. And this is a really good example of that. Isabella says, "Hi, my friend linked me to this video, and I was happy to hear that you remembered my group. My friends and I are part of the big choir that came and sang for Ariel, and I just wanted to thank you for making that such a wonderful experience for us. We were visiting Disney for the National Performing Arts Festival, and what we sang for Ariel was a part of our performance. About a month before our trip, a member of our group had passed away. and we were all at a pretty low point. This trip was so incredibly healing for all of us, and being able to experience things like performing for Ariel was absolutely amazing. The picture of us performing for Ariel even made it into our school's yearbook. So just know that memory is just as special to us as it is to you. Thank you for making a bunch of goofy theater kids trip. And I just thought that was so crazy. I mean, really, I mean, the title of this video is crazy, but like, it is crazy. Like, when you saw, I mean, I can guarantee you that not a single person in that room had any idea that they had just gone through that. And I can't even begin to fathom how hard that must be. Because if you are in any sort of group or club, especially in high school, if that was just a snippet of their performance, you can tell they spent a lot of time together and they were so close. And when you have a group like that that's so close, and especially at such a young age, I cannot even begin to fathom what that must have been like for them to have lost a member of their group before coming. And I'm sure it was so hard for them knowing that the member of their group could not be a part of that. But still to see them with so much joy. I mean, I'll even post the picture again. You can see the picture, like, they're just very joyful and happy, and they were so sweet, and you would have no idea that they went through that. So again, it goes back to, like, Disney has the magic and the power to be able to impact people's lives. And I know it sounds really cheesy, but it's so true. I know this is like one of my favorite memories of all time from working for Disney, and I am so excited that they gave me permission to share the video, you guys. So here I'm going to insert the video of the choir Glee Club group from Wisconsin singing to Ariel. I know it's gonna be really hard to top that one. I probably should have saved that one for one of my last ones, but I thought it'd be fun to like start off with a really good story. Going on to the next story, this one is just so uncomfortable. So I didn't actually experience this, but I heard it from a friend who was also spending her evening with Ariel in the grotto, and this family, I think it was a family, comes in, and there is this small child that's not that small. It's more of like the child is 3 or 4. It's a little bit older, so it's not like a baby. It's the 3 or 4-year-old. It's a little bit too old. But the child was breastfeeding, and you know what? I have no problem with, kids breastfeeding. When you're waiting in line to meet Ariel to breastfeed, personally, I think it's a little weird, but you know what? You do you. So yeah, the 3 to 4-year-old was breastfeeding in line to meet Ariel, and they finally go up to meet Ariel, and the mom, takes the kid off and sits the kid next to Ariel. And I can't make this up. The kid actually spit the warm breast milk that was in their mouth all over Ariel. And Ariel had to swim away and stop meeting with the guests for a little bit, take a little seaweed shower and come back. But yeah, I cannot imagine what that must have been like for Ariel. Luckily, I wasn't there to experience it. I'm pretty glad I didn't actually have to experience that in person. Just hearing the story was horrible enough, but yes. So I did not personally experience it, but I had a friend who experienced Ariel getting spit up on with warm breast milk that was in a 3 to 4-year-old's mouth. So that has happened. Another thing that has happened too, along the lines of, I guess, like bodily fluids, as weird as that sounds, there's been a couple different times where little children, of course, have, not been able to hold it all in and have like peed on the floor. Or Ariel, she is sitting on this beautiful clamshell, and so the kids will come and swim up next to her and sit down next to her. And so there's of course been instances where Ariel's had to swim away for a few hours because there's been kids that have peed. And it's actually also happened at the hall as well. I remember there was one night I was working as an attendant over at the hall, and the same thing had happened with Anna and Elsa. There was a kid that had peed on the carpet. They had to go check on Arendelle for a few hours while they cleaned up that. So again, yeah, it does happen. And it's not the best situation. Another, I guess, crazy story is just because of living in Florida or being Florida. I don't know if Disneyland experiences the same issue, but there are lots of bugs because of the humidity. It's totally normal. I mean, there's bugs around. And so one of these bugs, I'm pretty sure it was a cockroach. I think there was another, I can't remember off the top of my head now, there was another name for a big bug that looks exactly like a cockroach, but apparently it's not a cockroach. But we're just gonna call them cockroaches for now. But there was one evening where I not only killed one cockroach, but 2 cockroaches. One of them was out in the, as you're swimming up into the grotto, there is a little part of the cavern. It's a little bit dark in there. Luckily there weren't any guests around, no mermaids were harmed, but there was a cockroach and I had to like take off my shoe and like kill it, and it was big. And I don't know why, but cockroaches like didn't bug me as much. Like spiders, can't do spiders. Cockroaches, no, they're not too bad. There was another, so that was earlier in the night. Later on in the night, I was working as an attendant and I was with Ariel, and somehow there was a cockroach that had gotten into the grotto. And luckily again, there weren't any guests, but I had to kill that cockroach as well. So yeah, there was a couple of different cockroaches. I think it's just when it gets really humid, but I had to kill 2 in one night. So this next story is going to be slightly inappropriate. I will do my best to keep it clean. But there was one night I was hanging out with Ariel in the grotto, and this big group of guests came in to meet Ariel, and I think they were a group of friends. They were all about my age, I want to say, and they all lived in Florida, so they were local. One guest was an amazing artist, and he had shown Ariel this picture he drew. He did such an amazing job. And then another friend had this bubble wand, and Ariel loved it because of course she's a mermaid, she loves bubbles. And another friend was talking to Ariel, and I think he was a little bit nervous, and he had a little bit of a Freudian slip. So this guest, he was trying to talk to Ariel about Ursula, and he was trying to say, I think he was trying to say Ursula's tentacles, but he didn't say the word tentacles. He said a word that sounds a lot like tentacles, also begins with a T, and can be found on a male. So that's as much as I'm gonna say, but you could tell he was just mortified and he did not mean to say that. It's okay, Ariel understood that too. She totally understood that he did not mean to say that at all. But it was just so funny, and I think I have another picture I can insert here of everyone just cracking up laughing, including Ariel, because it was obvious that he just totally messed up and just did not mean to say that at all. Right before I moved back to Washington, some of the friends came to say to go see Ariel before I had left, and so one of the friends had gotten Ariel a present, and Ariel had no idea what it was, and I actually have a video of it, so I'll show you guys the clip afterwards. But yeah, so he came to say bye to Ariel, and he had a present for her, and she sees what it is, and he had gotten her an octopus, a stuffed octopus. It was around the time Finding Dory was coming out, so they had the octopus friend, and he named it Tentacles. Isn't it? It's Tentacles.
I told you.
It was really sweet, and it was really cool that Ariel got to see them because they were locals, and they came back to see Ariel a couple different times. So that was really cool that Ariel got to be friends with them after all that, and it was just a really fun memory, and it was cool that they got to become friends afterwards. So one night I was an attendant and I was hanging out with Tinkerbell. Now there's a lot of different, what do they call them? Blueberries. There's a lot of different blueberries because we wear the blue shirts, the character attendants. Tinkerbell calls them blueberries. There's a lot of different blueberries that get to hang out with Tinkerbell. So there's blueberries that get to hang out right next to her and help her with all the different little pixies that come through. And there's also some blueberries that are outside of Pixie Hollow and are helping the different little humans go through Pixie Portal and become pixies, because of course Tinkerbell is very small and you have to shrink down and go through Pixie Portal to meet her. So there's blueberries that are in with Tinkerbell in Pixie Hollow, and there's blueberries outside of the Pixie Portal before the guests get to go meet her. So I hope that makes sense. A couple different blueberries. This evening, I was one of the blueberries that was outside of the Pixie portal with the guests that are waiting to meet Tinkerbell. In that position, you get one 15-minute break, 1 hour break, and another 15-minute break. And same with the blueberry that is in with Tinkerbell, they get a couple different breaks too. And there is another blueberry, and this blueberry is called the Breaker. And what they do is they go around to the different blueberries and they give them their breaks. They go give the first attendant their break, and then they give the second attendant their break, and then they go back and help the first attendant that is getting the guests ready to go meet Tinkerbell. Anyways, so this attendant, so I'm the attendant outside with the pixies, or with the humans, and so this one attendant comes by and he gives me my break, and then he gives the other attendant their break, and then he's gone. So like I just said, you give the first attendant the break, and then the second attendant gets a break. And then he's supposed to come back and help me, but then he's gone for like 40 minutes. And I'm like, wait a second, like I knew the schedule because I'd been there so many times, and I knew like, well, that's really weird. He should be helping me. I'm not sure what he's doing. And I remember I would, every once in a while I'd take a peek inside Pixie Hollow, and he wasn't in there. And I'm like, where the heck is this guy? He definitely has not gotten a break yet. I'm not sure where he is. So eventually, 40 minutes later, when he's supposed to be helping me, he's not. I'm pretty sure he was just off in the break room, like giving himself a break, even though he hasn't earned it. I was there for 6 or 7 hours. He was only there for 3 or 4. Definitely, if one of us were to get a break, it'd be me or the other attendant who is actually working. But yeah, so he's not giving himself a break. That's bad enough. He comes back and he is just covered in pixie dust. He is covered in about 3 times the amount of pixie dust that Tinkerbell would get from Queen Clarion, just to paint a picture. Like, he's in way too much pixie dust. And he was prancing back in, and he comes over, and I'm just like thinking, oh my gosh, like, is that what you were doing for 40 minutes? You're just dumping yourself in pixie dust? Another thing too, pixie dust is only for pixies. It's not for the attendants, it's not for the blueberries. Blueberries don't need pixie dust to fly. Only the fairies, and Tinkerbell especially, gets pixie dust. So he's not supposed to be getting pixie dust. So he gives me my lunch break, and then he gives the other attendant their lunch break, and then he's gone again. And I know his schedule, and I know, like, okay, maybe he's gone for maybe like a 15, but he's gone for like another 40 minutes. And I'm like, dude, like, you're definitely not supposed to be doing that. Like, at least come ask me if I need help. I didn't really need help, but at least come ask me if I need help. And then if I don't, you could help out the other attendant. But like, you should be helping one of us. It's really not that hard to do. It's even easier when there's 2 people. So anyways, he's off who knows where. So by the time he's gone, and by the time he's supposed to be coming back, the manager happens to walk by, and he's just checking on people. That happens a lot during the night. There's lots of different managers for different locations, and they have, one manager will be in charge of like several different locations, so you could go a whole night without seeing a manager. But he just happened to be walking by, and was just hanging out with me, and was just checking in on seeing how things were going. And this guy, the fairy boy, as I like to call him, comes back in, and he's coming back to give the second attendant their break, and I kid you not, he is somehow covered in even more pixie dust. He is now wearing about 5 times the amount of pixie dust that Tinkerbell would wear. And he comes in, he starts just like walking in casually. He's like literally prancing in the room, like going over through Pixie Portal, and the manager just like looks at him, and he's just like, whoa, 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 whoa. And the guy like finally like hears him, and he like stops. And the manager is just like, so who gave you all that pixie dust? And the guy, who is very bold, Fairy Boy is very bold, he just goes to the manager and he's just like, oh, I did. And the manager's just like, okay. And the manager, by the way, super nice. Like, there were some managers that would have just fired him right then and there. This manager is super nice, and he's just like, okay, well, you know, that's not in Disney look. That's not in Disney, you know, you can't be wearing all that pixie dust. The pixie dust is only for the fairies. You need to take it all off. And I kid you not, the fairy boy asks the manager, I think he was kidding, I don't know how he's this bold, but the fairy boy asks the manager like, oh, can I use your shirt? And he asks the manager if he can use his shirt to wipe off the pixie dust that he put on, which he wasn't supposed to have in the first place. So the manager is very kind. I'm sitting there just like looking at him like, oh my gosh, like, what are you doing? Are you stupid? Like, that's just like, first of all, you're not supposed to have that in the first place. And then to be bold enough to like joke around and ask him to use his shirt to like wipe it off. is just like beyond me. But the manager is, again, very nice, and he just kind of laughs and just like, no, like, you know, you gotta go wipe it off right now. So the fairy boy can't do his job because he's busy trying to scrub off the pixie dust, and it's another like half an hour before I see him again. So I see him again, he comes back, and he's all like upset and saying like, oh yeah, like he said that like I could, you know, it's not in Disney code, and I could, he basically got a, what's it called? I think it's called it's not a referral. He basically got a warning, but this type of warning goes on your record. And if you get, and I think if you get like 3 of them, you get fired. So he got something that, so he did get punished for it in a way. He didn't get fired, and the manager even told him like, you could have gotten fired. I could easily fire you for this because he's not, very much so not in Disney look. And the guy was like so upset about it. And to top all of it off, the fairy boy couldn't even finish giving out breaks because of all of this. So to top it all off, because all this happened, he couldn't finish doing his job, and his shift had ended, and some of us didn't get our breaks. So the manager himself had to come around and give us breaks because Fairy Boy had to go home. His shift was up, and he could not finish his job because he was too busy doing all of this. So that was literally one of my last shifts as an attendant, and I was just, again, I was just so surprised that someone would have the audacity to do that, and just to the way he was talking to the manager, I was just surprised. Because me, it's like, I know how easy it is for people to lose their jobs at Disney. Like, it's sadly pretty easy because Disney can just replace people like nobody's business. So if you don't follow the rules, they'll easily find someone that does. So the fact that he was just being that bold, it's like, dude, you could easily lose your job, and it's just not worth it just putting on pixie dust. Like, it's just so not worth it. Yeah, I never saw him after that, but I was just so surprised that he felt bold enough to do that whole thing. It just was just very entertaining and crazy, to say the least. Alright, so we finally made it to my very last story, and this story was the most magical experience I had ever experienced working for Disney. Sometimes it's really cool to actually hear like how Disney affects the guests that you meet, and I love hearing from you guys, hearing from some of you that have met Ariel and had amazing experiences with her, or any of the characters. It's so great to hear those stories because you don't always have the opportunity to hear that. So this is a story of when I actually had the opportunity as an attendant to see the full story. I was an extra that night. So how to explain this? I was there in case that someone couldn't be there. So in case someone got sick, I was there to go in. However, I was needed as a performer or as an attendant because I had been trained as an attendant, so I could do either. There wasn't really a need for me. I could go home if I wanted to, or I could be like work as an attendant, and not really as an attendant, but just kind of help where I was needed. So one of my favorite managers, he was also the one I mentioned in my other video who's one of his ex-boyfriends died in the pulse shootings. He is just awesome. He is just so funny, and he's just very real, and I absolutely love him. Like, he's just such a wonderful person. So I got to be his assistant for the night, and that was like my favorite job because we could just go around and see all the different characters. Because like I said before in the Fairy Boy story, there's different like leaders at each location, and then over several different locations there's a manager. So he was over several different locations, and my job for the evening, like, I was getting paid to go hang out with him and go around and assist him at the different locations. So it was getting to be towards the end of the night, and we were closing some of the locations. This silly sideshow with Minnie Mouse and Daisy and Donald and Goofy, that closes before the fireworks go, and so we were helping them close. I was assisting one of the attendants. So there's this group of, it's a family, and there's 3 girls, and one of them she was going into college. One was, I think, a senior in high school, and the other one was, I think, a sophomore in high school. And honestly, I probably wouldn't have really noticed them, except for I noticed their dad. And their dad was standing off in the corner, and he was just not having a good time. Like, he was not having a good time at all. Like, he was just like, he had his arms crossed, and he was just like the epitome of grumpy. Like, that was the dad. And honestly, I probably just would have ignored him. I mean, we see guests like that all the time. I'm just kind of like, I don't even really want to interact with those guests because I just feel like they're just not, I mean, they're not in a good mood. And so naturally, you don't want to go out of your way to talk to them. One of the captains who was at the location, so again, the captain is the direct leader over that location. He happened to come by when this family was taking pictures, and he happened to ask the dad, like, hey, how's your night going? And the dad was like, not great. Like, he was so, I mean, that's why I don't engage guests like that, because he was just very honest about how his night was not going well. The captain's like, why? He's like, oh, you know, like, we just have to wait on all these lines, and it's hot here, it's crowded, and he's just obviously not having a good time, and he just was not budging. The captain happened to go get my manager, who was amazing, and the manager was talking to him and was saying like, oh, you know, I'm sorry to hear that your night's not going well, and was trying to like make him better, you know, feel better, but he still just wasn't having it. Like, he was just super grumpy. So him and the daughters were finishing up with their photos that they were taking with Minnie Mouse, and they started to leave. My manager, he was just gonna let them go. We were all gonna just be like, oh, let them go. But the manager is like, you know what? We're gonna make their night special. He went after the family and the dad, and he told me that he was gonna go bring them around to meet some characters. And he asked me, he's like, do you wanna come too? I'm like, heck yeah, I wanna come. I don't wanna sit here and close like Minnie Mouse and, you know, close that location. Like, of course I'm gonna wanna come with you and like make magical moments for this family. Like, that sounds like fun. And so they're in the souvenir store, and the manager finds them, and the daughters were with the dad, and there's a grandmother too. And so he's like, hey, you know, we really want to make your guys' night special. We're really sorry to hear that you're not having a good time, and we really want to change that. So we're going to take you to meet some characters, but in order to do so, you have to do us a favor. So my manager went and got like a really silly, goofy hat for the dad. He's like, you have to wear this. Like, this is the only way you can do this. You have to wear the hat. And the daughter's like, Dad, you gotta wear the hat. And so he's like, fine. So he puts on the hat. We're like, oh, would you like to go see Ariel? And they're like, yeah. One of the girls, that was like her favorite character, was Ariel. So it was really cool because we left there. We got to go in the line to meet Ariel, and it was so cool because you could see them. You could see them beforehand. You could see, like, in line, they were so excited. I was asking them, like, oh, what's your favorite Disney character? And like, oh, you're in school, like, what do you think? And one of them was graduating, going to college. So it was just cool to like talk with them about like stuff like that. And because a lot of times if you're an attendant or performer, you just see the guests when they come in the room, but you don't get to see their excitement beforehand and get to see them afterwards. So it was so fun talking to them beforehand, like, what are you gonna ask Ariel? And they didn't know what to ask her. So I was like, oh, you know, you can ask her about, you know, how Flounder's doing, and I bet she's gonna ask if you guys combed your hair with a dingle hopper. Obviously I know a lot about Ariel, so they didn't know that, but I knew that. So we go in to meet Ariel. So it was just really fun because it was cool to see them get excited beforehand and then see them meeting Ariel. I think they were kind of nervous because they weren't like super talkative. They were a lot more talkative beforehand. But they got the chance to meet Ariel, and it was such a fun interaction. You could tell like they were just smiling and they were having a great time. But after that, one of the girls, I think it was the middle girl, she really liked Belle, and there is a story time with Belle that you can go do. So we take them to go see that. We had a special meet and greet with them afterwards with Belle. Belle actually gave them a rose, and they got to take pictures with Belle, and it was so special because, again, not a lot of people get to do that, so they got to meet Belle. And I think that was gonna be it for the night, but then I talked to my manager, and they had really wanted to go to be our guests, but they couldn't get reservations. I talked to my manager, I said, hey, what are the chances we could get them in to be our guests to meet the Beast? And he's like, I don't know, that we could try. So we pulled some strings, and we were able to get them in to be our guests to meet the Beast. And you can't even go in the restaurant unless you have a reservation. So this was really special. As you're walking up to the Beast Castle, the fireworks started to go off. And honestly, the Beast castle area is a really great place to watch the fireworks. So we said, oh, hey, before we go inside, you guys want to watch the fireworks? They're like, yeah, sure. So again, we're just like talking. At this point, I was talking to them a lot, just hanging out with them. They were just like, you could tell they were just so nice, and it was just really fun to see their excitement because they were older, you know, teenagers. And a lot of times the adults don't get as excited to meet characters, but they were just so excited, and they were just really nice, and they're wonderful. We were watching the fireworks, and the youngest one, who was still in high school, she wasn't young, she's probably about 15, she starts just sobbing. I think it was either the middle daughter that told me, or maybe it was the grandma. It might have been the grandma. Later in the evening, but one of them told me that their mom had passed away, and their mom had loved Disney, and they had planned this trip, and their mom, I think, had cancer, and the mom had passed away about maybe less than a year ago. and that Disney was the place that they came with their mom. And so the younger daughter was really missing the mom. And at one point the grandma like pulled me aside and she was saying like, thank you so much. You have no idea what this means to these girls. Like, it's so hard for them not being here with their mom, and this is just so special for them. So while that was happening, I was like, oh my gosh, like I was thinking to myself, I can't wait to tell my manager, because I'm sure he had no idea this was going on, and how cool that we were able to make them feel so special on their trip when obviously they're dealing with all this pain. And apparently about the time that this was happening to me, my manager was talking to the dad, and the dad obviously was very gruff in the beginning, but he's starting to loosen up a little bit. He's actually starting to almost smile. And my manager was talking to the dad. The dad actually happened to tell him this story about the same time that I heard the story. And the dad was telling him about how hard it was for him to lose his wife. He still had his wedding ring on, and it had been about a year, so obviously it was still very real for him. He told my manager that like the only time he really experiences joy is through his daughters, and to see his daughters be that happy, and he said it really made his night, and it really made him feel special to see someone invest time in his daughters and make them feel special. So for us, making that moment memorable, making that trip memorable for his daughters affected him. And it's just really cool because like, you don't understand always why someone is upset when they're upset. Like I saw the dad that was grumpy and I didn't want anything to do with him because I'm like, oh man, I'm not gonna even try to talk to him because he's probably just gonna get mad at me. But he was upset because he was missing his wife, and that was a special place for their family to go. And obviously their mom and his wife had just passed away not that long ago, and it was a really hard time for them. And even though the girls were having fun, you could tell like he was there without her, and I can't even imagine how hard that must have been for their family. We took them in to see the Beast, and that was really cool, and it was just so cool seeing their faces light up and seeing, it was really cool just to see how much they enjoyed it. And after meeting the Beast in the castle, they went to go catch their fast passes. I think it was for Space Mountain, and that was the last I saw them, but it was just so magical because you really got to see the full story. You got to see. And a lot of times you just don't get that. You don't get to see when you're meeting guests as a performer, you don't understand what those guests are going through. You have no idea what they're going through. Like there was that one dad and he just seemed really unhappy and didn't really want to participate. He didn't really want to meet the characters. But here he was, and he was upset because he was hurting. He was just missing someone that was so important to him that he used to share this place with, and being there was reminding him of her. And so it was just really cool to see that and see how just us making the little efforts to like have these guests meet all these different characters, just to see how that affected them and affected their trip. So sorry that story was so long. It was hard for me to remember all the little details, but that was just my favorite memory working for Disney. And that was actually soon after the alligator incident happened. And although that was just so tragic and Pulse was so tragic, it was so cool to be able to have this experience and just really see how Disney can affect a guest's life, and to see how Disney can make a guest just feel so happy and bring light into their life. Even when back home they're dealing with this hardship, it was just so cool to see and make that magic happen and make that so special for the family. It was truly one of the coolest things I think I've ever done. And that's it, you guys. So those are all of the stories I have, and I hope you guys enjoyed them. I know it's been really fun for me to like remember that. It's just really special for me being able to share that because I'm no longer there, and there are some days where I just truly miss working there. It was such an amazing job, and I just loved it because I love being able to hug people every day and tell them how wonderful they are and making magic for them and helping them feel special and feel loved and feel joy. One of my favorite memories, I think I'll talk about this in a different video too. Someone mentioned that the idea of doing like different Disney memories. I remember when I was 12 and I went to Disney World for the first time for my 12th birthday. I got this Ariel purse for my birthday, and I was going to meet Ariel, and I had the purse, and she was like, oh, do you want me to sign the purse? And I didn't even know that was a thing, but the fact that like she offered to sign my purse for me, and I've had that purse. I actually had that purse while I was working for Disney World as an attendant. I would use that as my like work bag. So that thing is now 12 years old. It's 12 years old now, and I still have it, and it still is so special to me. So obviously the characters really do have the opportunity. It's not just like a job, you know, it's like they do have the opportunity to make a difference and really impact people's lives. And I took that really seriously, and I thought that was cool that you had the ability to make someone feel special and loved. And I would just love any sort of job that would allow me to do that, and that was just so special, and it's been special for me to share that with you guys. I'm sorry this video is so long, but I hope you guys have enjoyed this video, and I will be coming out with lots more Disney videos, don't you worry. So I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!